rustling of 𝐻𝐼n's wedding gown as she moved toward the heavy wooden door. Her hand closed the fabric while her heart thudded gently in her chest. Voices floated through the crack beneath the door, low, stern, and unmistakably male. She pressed her ear softly to the door. Mr. Kim's voice was cold and commanding. "You are married now, Theon. Be a man. I want a grandchild soon. I waited 7 years for your marriage again. Don't waste any more time. This is your responsibility." 𝐻𝐼n's heart dropped. She bit her lower lip and furrowed her brows, fingers tightening around the fabric of her gown. She waited for Theon's response, and when it came, it was slow and steady, laced with quiet defiance. "Dad, everything will happen with my wife's consent. I won't force her, and neither should you." There was a heavy silence before Mr. Kim barked out furiously. "Consent? She's your wife, you're not a boy anymore. Or do you want this one to leave you like your first wife?" 𝐻𝐼n's lips parted slightly. Theon clenched his jaw and remained silent while 𝐻𝐼n was scary. "He is," she thought. She stepped back from the door, heart hammering, fingers nervously scratching at her neck. The weight of his past, the pressure from his family, it all sank into her chest like a stone. Still, she muttered under her breath with a tiny cough, "Who says he's scary?" She was still lost in her swirling thoughts when the door creaked open. She gasped softly and turned around, her eyes meeting Theon's deep brown gaze. He didn't speak immediately, just stared at her in quiet contemplation. She noted how tall he was, broad shoulders slightly hunched as he undid the first buttons of his waistcoat before walking into the room. Theon sat on the edge of the bed and began removing his shoes, the silence between them thick but not uncomfortable. He broke the silence as he spoke in his deep low voice. "I'm sure you must have heard what my dad said. Don't worry, I won't force you for anything. Your consent is my priority." He didn't spare her a glance even once. 𝐻𝐼n slowly padded over and sat on the farthest edge of the bed in her gown, still fiddling with the back lace. After a moment she mumbled, voice almost shy, "You're not as scary as they said." He raised his brows, one shoe in hand, and looked at her waiting. She scratched her neck again, eyes not meeting his. "My mom said you are cold and ruthless, especially with people who disobey you. She told me to be obedient because I'm younger than you, but you seem the opposite." Theon simply shrugged, lips twitching ever so slightly. "Then why weren't you scared? Why would you still marry me?" "I was married once. I'm 34, you're what, 20? You're still a kid." She let out a long sigh, her expression softening. "I didn't marry you out of bravery," she confessed. "My mom forced me. She wanted to get rid of me, and I wanted to escape that house, so I thought, why not marry you?" His head tilted slightly as he observed her silent for a while. Then with a gentle tone he spoke. "I may not know how to be a good husband, but I won't neglect my responsibilities. If you ever feel trapped, just tell me, but don't betray me." His voice was calm but serious. It didn't scare her, it grounded her. 𝐻𝐼n stood up too, clutching the front of her gown as she faced him with a small kissing grin. "Don't worry, old man. You have my loyalty. Just don't beat me, okay?" Theon blinked at her. "Old man." She grinned wider. "Well, I'm just 20, still a baby, remember?" For a second his lips curved up into the faintest smile before he quickly hid, shaking his head. "I would never raise a hand on you. I'm not that kind of man." She nodded, though her voice lowered. "People change later." He heard it but didn't respond. Instead he stood and walked into the bathroom. While he changed, 𝐻𝐼n busied herself, taking off her jewelry, pulling out the pins from her hair. The curls fell loosely onto her shoulders when she saw Theon come out in a simple black tee and loose pajama pants. He moved toward the drawer, pulled out a small velvet box and handed it to her. "For you." 𝐻𝐼n blinked, surprised. "For me?" She opened it and gasped quietly. "So pretty." The pendant glistened under the soft room light, a delicate butterfly-shaped charm inlaid with soft blue stones. She smiled genuinely. "Thank you, this is beautiful." He didn't reply, only gave her a small nod and walked over to the bed, lying down comfortably on his side. 𝐻𝐼n, hesitating slightly, asked softly, "Would you mind if I sleep on the bed?" He turned his head toward her, gaze unreadable but kind. "𝐻𝐼n, you're my wife," he said softly. "You have every right over me, this house, this bed, everything here. You don't have to ask permission." She blinked quickly, caught off guard by his words, then gave a shy nod. "Thank you." With a small fluttery smile, she rushed into the washroom to change. Her heart was racing, not from fear but from the unexpected warmth in his voice. When she came out in a comfy, oversized shirt and pajamas, she saw him lying on his side, eyes closed. She tiptoed over and slipped under the blanket beside him, carefully lying on her side, facing him. Theon's face looked peaceful up close. His lashes were long, nose straight, and lips relaxed. He looked different when asleep, softer, less distant. Her eyes twirled slowly, his slightly tousled hair, his calm breathing, the faint stubble on his jaw. She inched closer, curious, and was just about to brush a stray lock off his forehead when his eyes fluttered open. Startled, 𝐻𝐼n's eyes widened, and she scooted back, immediately clearing her throat awkwardly. "Can I study?" she blurred. He stared at her quietly and then hummed lightly, the corner of his lips twitching again. "Of course you can." She released a long breath of relief and laughed softly, resting her head on her palm. "Thank God. I thought you wouldn't let me study." "I'm not a monster," he replied, voice quiet and amused. Her eyes twinkled. "You know, I wanted to study so bad. I love coding. I want to become an engineer someday. But my mom never allowed me to study after 12. Theon's eyes lingered on her bright expression, the way her lips moved excitedly, the sparkle in her kiss. "You can study as much as you want," he said gently. "I'll support you. You're free now." She squealed softly and closed the blanket. "Thank you so much. You're actually a very good person, old man." "Old man again," he groaned, rubbing his forehead. She giggled and winked. "Well, I'm just a little baby wife. What else should I call you?" He gave in and chuckled under his breath. Then, in a rare gesture, he raised his hand and gently patted her head, brushing her hair softly. Her eyes widened at the warm touch. "Sleep now, big day today," he murmured. Wine nodded but didn't stop smiling as she closed her eyes. Then stared at her face, listening to her soft breaths. A smile ghosting his lips as he whispered to himself, "Maybe this marriage won't be so bad after all." Few days later. It had only been a few days since their quiet wedding, but to Wine it already felt like a whole new lifetime. They had been to a handful of small gatherings hosted by Mr. King's old business friends, stuffy rooms full of old men, hollow laughter, and overly polite women who eyed Wine with either pity or scrutiny. And always she noticed the same thing. Mr. Kim treated him not as a grown man, not as the head of the household, not even as someone who ran successful business, but like a child. "You can't even sit straight. Didn't I teach you better posture? Don't talk too much. You look like a fool." Even at 34th, Him would stand there, jaw tight, gaze lowered, enduring every jab with infuriating silence. Wine would sit beside him, silently clenching her fists in her lap, resisting every urge to scream. "He's not a kid. Stop treating him like one." But Him never showed any reaction. Just that calm, composed mask he always wore. Cold from the outside, but now Wine knew better. She had seen the warmth under that surface, and that made her blood boil even more. Today, Tim had left early for the office, and Wine found herself wandering the vast, echoing mansion. The corridors were long, the marble floors gleaming, but something felt off. Too quiet, too unkept. She found the staff stealing luxury items and being too wasteful. Now she peeked into the laundry room, dusty, unused. The hamper was overflowing with clothes. His blazer from yesterday was still crumpled on the chair. The bedsheet of their room wasn't even tucked in properly. Tim's closet half empty, some of his designer jackets weren't even there. With a growing sense of confusion and anger, Wine moved toward the staff quarters. What she found in the maid's room made her stop in her tracks. 3 maids lounged lazily on the plush sofa, sipping from crystal glasses. A butler had his feet up on the coffee table, flipping through a fashion magazine in Tim's designer robe. One of the cooks, yes, the cook, was laughing loudly, wrapped in one of Tim's expensive shawls and helping himself to open a bottle of aged wine. Her eyes twitched. "What?" she muttered before clenching her jaw and storming toward the kitchen, which was upside down. "Unclean." She stormed back into the sitting room and asked in a low tone, "Why is the house still unclean?" Startled, the staff froze, but only for a second. One maid smiled, muttering under her breath. "Sir's first wife was a goddess, so elegant, not like this little girl." Another chuckled. "Yeah, she knew her place. This one's barely out of school." Wine heard it. She definitely heard it, but instead of flinching, she walked out, picked a broomstick and a frying pan. When she returned, her expression was far soft. She switched off the TV, throwing the remote. They started protesting, but Wine snapped the broom down on the table. "Crack. Get up, all of you. I don't care if you work here for 5 years or 50. You're not going to use my husband's house like it's a freaking resort. I have recorded everything and sent to him." She lied about recording. They scrambled, tripping over each other. "I want this entire place spotless. The kitchen is a war zone. His laundry isn't done. His clothes are missing. You're wearing his robes, his wine, his trust." The staff stood like trembling children. "You're going to scrub this floor with toothbrushes. Every inch. You're going to cook a 5-course meal for all the stray cats and dogs outside. They deserve more than you." One woman whimpered. "Madam, shut up," Wine snarled. They ran to work, scattering like terrified birds. Wine stood firm in the center of the room, broom in hand like a war general, not moving an inch. Hours passed. The kitchen began to smell like spice and roast. Water splashed across floors. Whimpers filled the air. When everything sparkled, Wine walked out to the courtyard. "You're not done yet," she called out. The staff stood in a line, looking as though they had run a marathon. Squats, duck, walk, and quack. They blinked. "Quack?" One asked, horrified. Wine's eyes narrowed. "Quack." They immediately scuttled like ducks and began waddling in circles, shouting, "Quack, quack." Wine grinned widely, arms folded, satisfied beyond measure. "That's better." In their loud voices, she didn't hear the car pulling into the driveway. The black sedan stopped and then stepped out, briefcase in hand. Eyebrows immediately furrowed at the strange sight of his household staff waddling and quacking like a farm show. Wine snorted as she muttered, "You thought Mr. Kim will not notice. He's too busy. Well, guess what? I noticed, and now you're gonna." She dramatically flailed the frying pan and turned around but froze mid-step. "Saint him." He approached slowly and asked in a serious tone, "What happened?" Wine casually rested the frying pan on her shoulder. "They were misusing your things, drinking your wine, wearing your coats, ruining the kitchen, so I turned them into ducks." He blinked, then softly, almost elegantly, he laughed. A low, warm chuckle that caught the attention of everyone. The staff froze mid-quack. They turned toward him, wide-eyed, and whispered amongst themselves. He smiled. He laughed. With his first wife, he never even smiled once. Wine heard it too, and for a moment her smile faded. She looked down, fiddling with her fingers. They said your first wife was beautiful, elegant, better than me. I'm just a little girl." The moment he heard that, Tim's smile vanished. He stepped forward, tone steely. "You are all fired." The courtyard echoed with cries of protest, but Henry looked at them. Instead, he gently reached out and took Wine's hand in his, warm fingers curling softly around hers. "Come inside," he said, his voice quiet but firm. She let him lead her in, her heart thudding in her chest. Once inside, he set his briefcase down and took out a sleek envelope and turned to her. "I applied for your admission to the university, computer science, the best one in the city." Wine's eyes widened. You did what?" His gaze softened as he handed her the envelope. She squealed before she could stop herself, flinging her arms around his neck. Thank you so much." He froze for a heartbeat. completely still, stunned by the warmth of her body against his. Then slowly, he hugged her back, his arms wrapped around her waist, and he exhaled a soft, calming breath, like he was breathing peace for the first time in years. This girl, this little hurricane of a woman, she was something else. When he finally pulled back, his hands rose to cup her cheeks, thumbs gently brushing her skin. "No one," he murmured. "No one can take your place. You're my only wife. Don't listen to anyone's nonsense." Wine blinked, stunned by the intensity of his words. She nodded softly, heart pounding like a drum. "I prepared your clothes. Go change. I'll bring you something to eat." A small smile tugged at his lips. He nodded, gaze still lingering on her, and turned toward the bedroom, but then stopped, turning to her again. "Next time, invite me to the schooling. I'll bring popcorn. That was the most entertaining thing I saw." Wine narrowed her eyes and said, "Yeah, that's not funny. They stole luxury items. They have been treating this house like a backstage party." He smiled and said, "Absolutely criminal. I'll sue them, don't worry. You were terrifying but kind of adorable too." Her cheeks flushed as he walked away smirking. The moment he disappeared from sight, Wine let out a tiny squeal and covered her face, mumbling, "God, why did I hug him like that?" Still, she couldn't stop smiling. Outside, the ducks had gone silent, but inside the house, something was beginning to bloom. Time skip. Sunlight streamed through the tall curtains of the Grand King mansion, filling every room with a soft golden glow. The air smelled faintly of toasted bread and brewed coffee as Wine placed the last of the breakfast dishes on the dining table, a small satisfied hum leaving her lips. She tied her apron off with a playful spin and padded toward the living room, her soft slippers making tiny sounds against the polished floor. Tim had the day off, and he was lounging comfortably on the velvet sofa, one arm resting behind his head, watching some muted documentary while his other hand absently rubbed his temple. His hair was slightly messy, his sweatpants low on his hips, and his oversized black shirt made him look far younger than 34. "Breakfast is ready," Wine announced gently as she peeked in from the archway. He turned toward her, and the corner of his lips curled up at the sight of her in that oversized hoodie and pajama shorts, her hair tied up in a bun with stray strands framing her face. She looked like a ray of morning sunshine. "I told you, Wine, you don't have to do all this. I can afford a chef," Tim said softly, reaching out his hand toward her. Wine walked over and took his hand without hesitation, settling beside him on the couch, their shoulders brushing, her smaller frame curled up comfortably next to him. "But I like doing it for you," she said, smiling as her thumb gently brushed his. "Back at my parents' house, I used to spend all day in the kitchen, mostly for my brother." She snorted lightly, rolling her eyes. "He would call me 20 times a day to bring him water or toast or polish his shoes like I was born to serve him." His expression darkened slightly at the mention. He gently tugged a loose strand of hair behind her ear, his touch soft and lingering. Over the past few days, he had begun to notice the subtle cracks behind her smile, the way her face tensed every time her family was brought up. She didn't speak much of them, but when she did, it was never fond. Before he could ask more, the front door suddenly burst open. Mr. Kim's voice boomed through the house. Theo immediately straightened, standing up. Wine followed his lead, and they both bowed slightly as Mr. Kim stomped in, face twisted in a scowl. "What is this nonsense I heard?" He snapped, eyes zeroing in on Theo. "You did her admission into university. Did I marry you off to baby a child or to finally give me a damn ear?" Theo's jaw tensed but didn't let go of Wine's hand. Instead, he held it tighter, stepping slightly in front of her as if shielding her from the verbal blow. "She's my wife. I support her dreams. Her education isn't a barrier, it's a blessing," he said calmly but firmly. Mr. Kim scoffed. "Dreams? You think I care about her dreams? I didn't marry you off to raise a spoiled brat. I want results, a grandson." Wine's fingers twitched, her lips pursed in restraint, but only for a moment. "Enough," she said, stepping forward, her voice steady. "With all due respect, father-in-law, I'm not here to be anyone's baby-making machine. I'm not livestock. I'm a human being." Mr. Kim's face turned red. "How dare you?" "Dare?" she said, cocking her head with a cool smile. "You dare treat your son like a servant in his own house and expect me to be silent about it. You have scolded him for breathing wrong. He's 34 and still being treated like he's 4. You think I won't say something? You insolent little..." "She's right," Ken suddenly cut in, his voice low but powerful. "Every word. And if I have to choose between pleasing you or protecting my wife, I'll choose her every time." Mr. Kim gaped, stunned. "You're defending her against me." He raised an eyebrow. "Well, she's a handful." He drawled with a mock sigh, throwing a teasing glance at Wine. "But she's my handful." Wine smacked his arm lightly, but her cheeks turned pink. "You have gone soft," Mr. Kim muttered, furiously glaring at both of them. "No wonder your first wife left you. That was it. Maybe she left because she didn't know how to handle a man like him." Wine snapped, smirking. "But don't worry, I do. And for the record, your threats don't scare me." She then stepped closer. "I have a suggestion for you, father-in-law. If you want to see a grandchild so hard, why don't you get married and have a baby?" Tim really tried to keep a straight face. But a chuckle escaped then and soon he was shaking with laughter, his arm wrapped around Wine's waist as she closed her arms defiantly. Mr. Kim turned red, growled something under his breath, and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. Wine huffed. "Geez, what a grumpy old fossil." Tim looked down at her, still chuckling softly. "You're something." They both sat back down, the tension slowly dissolving. "I'm sorry about him," Tim said after a moment, eyes lowered. "You didn't deserve that." Wine looked up at his face. His eyes were slightly shadowed, his expression unusually quiet, like a child who felt embarrassed by his parents' behavior. It made her heart ache. "Don't apologize for him," she said, gently reaching out to brush his hair from his eyes. "You're not responsible for his narrow mind." He smiled, eyes twinkling as he watched her rant again, her cheeks puffing slightly in irritation. You're cute when you're angry, he murmured suddenly, once blinked startled. I said, he teased with a sly grin. You're cute like a tiny puffball with rage. She gasped, swatting his arm again. Excuse me, puffball, you old man. He laughed. There it is again. Old man, I'm only 34. You're ancient. She huffed. You have back pain, don't you? He raised an eyebrow. And you're what, barely taller than a broomstick. She gasped again. I'm leaving you, meanie. She stood up in fake dramatic stomp, only for him to quickly grab her wrist and pull her back, this time not gently. She fell into his lap with a tiny yelp and his arms wrapped tightly around her waist as he kissed the top of her head. Don't go, he whispered, voice low against her ear. I got you something. One blinked, heart fluttering as he reached for a box on the side table. Inside, an iPad, an iPhone. Her mouth dropped open. You bought these for me? He nodded, brushing her cheek softly with the back of his hand. You always stare at tech stores when we pass by them. She opened her mouth with her eyes turned glassy. I used to save money from my pockets just to buy one, but my mom took it away and bought a new phone for my brother instead. Theon's smile faded. He pulled her closer again, hugging her tightly. That won't happen ever again. He felt her tremble slightly against his chest as she whispered, my mother always favored my brother. I was just the help. I had to polish his shoes, bring him water, clean up after his mess. I had to beg just to study. I stroked her back gently, chin resting on her shoulder. You don't have to beg for anything here. I'll give you everything. I'll protect you. You're not just someone's responsibility. You're my princess now. She melted in his arms, tears silently slipping down her cheeks. He didn't rush her. He just held her, letting his warmth soak into her bones, soothing years of neglected love and comfort. After a while, she sniffled and whispered, the breakfast's going to get cold. He chuckled. Then let's go eat, but you're sitting on my lap. She pulled back, wiping her cheeks. What, why? So I can feed you like a baby princess, he teased, standing up with a smirk. Then she laughed, chasing after him as they made their way to the dining room. Time had quietly slipped by. The cold, distant mansion Thane once lived in now radiated warmth, laughter, and life. The silence that used to echo through its grand halls had been replaced by the familiar hum of Wayne's voice. Her endless chatter about her professors, classmates, the cafeteria food, and the girl with weird eyeliner in her literature class. And Thane had fallen, deeply, quietly, completely. Every morning he woke up to the smell of freshly made breakfast toast, perfectly golden, omelette fluffy, and a cup of coffee exactly how he liked it. Wine would press a kiss to his cheek and remind him to eat lunch even while rushing off to her university with her bag bouncing on her shoulder and a donut in hand. She would text him between her classes. Eat lunch, old man. Drink water, not wine. Miss me yet? I got full marks in my coding quiz. Every night, no matter how late he was, she waited for him. Sometimes curled up on the couch with a blanket, sometimes dozing off at the dining table with dinner set for two. And every time Thane would find his chest swelling with warmth with her. One evening, they were sitting in the living room. Wayne had just gotten home and dropped onto the sofa beside him, legs tucked under her. No, she said, sipping her juice with a grin. Today one of my professors showed us this amazing new AI demo. He's so young, probably a few years older than me. And seriously, he's so smart, like genius smart. It was so impressive. Thane turned his head slowly. So young, he said, dryly flipping the TV channel without looking at her. Wayne blinked. She leaned over, eyeing him with mischief. Wait, are you jealous? Why would I be jealous? He muttered stiffly, not meeting her eyes. He's your age. I'm practically ancient next to you. One's lips parted, then she snorted. Oh my god, you're doing the age crisis thing again. He glared at her half-heartedly. You called me an old man first, because it's cute. She squealed, nudging his arm. I like kissing you. I mean, what should I call you? Daddy Longlegs, Grandpa-king? Thane turned toward her slowly. You're waking up a red wine. Her eyes widened. Oh no, too late. He leaned in, fingers brushing against her thigh. Say that again, baby. She squeaked, pushing his shoulders. Thane, you can't say that while I'm drinking juice. You started it, he smiled. I'm regretting it now. She huffed. Today Thane had texted her around 10 p.m. Don't wait for me tonight. I'll be late. Sleep early, baby. Wayne smiled at the message and even climbed into the bed like a good girl, but she couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling for a while, scrolling through memes, counted sheep, and finally drifted off, curled into a tiny ball on Thane's side of the bed, hugging his pillow. When she woke with a small groan, the room was dark. The digital clock blinked 1:07 a.m. in glowing red. She rubbed her eyes sleepily and climbed off the bed, mumbling, "Where's my phone?" and walked out toward the living room. She froze at the window. Thane's car was parked. She whispered to herself, he's back, her voice filled with quiet relief. As she tiptoed toward the hallway, she saw his coat and keys thrown carelessly on the couch, her brows furrowed. Thane. She called softly, but there was no response. She checked the kitchen, guest room, washroom empty. Then a soft thought tugged at her. He's steady. Her bare feet pattered down the hall. The door creaked slightly as she opened it. She found him on the floor, back against the couch, still in his black shirt, sleeves rolled up, head tilted down, his arms wrapped tightly around a photo frame. It was his mother. He was murmuring to her softly, unaware of her presence. She takes care of me, Mom. Even when I don't ask. She talks too much and calls me an old man, but I don't know. It doesn't feel empty anymore. I think I'm falling for her. Wayne's heart clenched, her breath hitched. She stepped in quietly. Thane. He looked up quickly and wiped his eyes at the back of his hand. Why are you awake? His voice cracked slightly. I was worried, she said, crouching beside him. You never come so late. He cupped her cheek gently, fingers trembling. I didn't mean to worry you. She leaned into his touch, placing her hand over his. Why are you so late? His gaze dropped to the photo in his lap. I went to see her. It's my mom's death anniversary. Her eyes filled with tears. The pain in his voice was like a blade through her chest. Without a second thought, she leaned forward and wrapped her arms around him. He didn't hesitate. His arms circled her waist as he buried his face in her chest, clutching her as if afraid she would disappear. She said nothing, just rolled his back, letting his weight melt into her, letting him breathe, letting him grieve. After a long silence, he sat up again, his composure slowly returning. He gave her a tired smile, brushing his thumb under her eye. Let's go, you're sleepy. She nodded, standing with him. I'll heat the food. But he held her hand and shook his head. I don't have the appetite. But I just want you, he whispered. She nodded again, quietly, softly, and followed him out of the study. In the bedroom, Anne climbed into the bed while Thane changed. She waited under the covers, hugging her knees, thinking about his words. Her heart felt heavy and warm all at once. When he came out, he didn't say anything. He just slipped under the blanket and laid over her, arms locking around her waist, face buried once again in her chest. She wrapped her arms around him instinctively, fingers curling into his hair. You know, she whispered was playful. My young professor said something funny today. Thane groaned, face still against her skin. Don't. Why jealous again? She teased. He pinched her side gently, making her gasp. Hey, you teased me first, now deal with it, he muttered. She tugged at his hair, softly grinning. Your age is really showing its victim. He smelled, lips curving against her skin. Keep talking and I'll show you what these old hands can do. She groaned, flustered. Why are you like this? I'm too young for this level of perversion. You started it, he said with a low chuckle. She grumbled, ranting like an annoyed old woman, while he laughed quietly against her chest. They grew quiet again, peaceful. His breath evened out, but her fingers continued moving in his hair. He spoke again, eyes still closed. Why, please tell me you're not looking for lice. She giggled. No, I'm looking for white hair. His eyes snapped open. You what? She bit her lip, trying not to laugh. Well, I just found 2 grey hairs on my head. Just checking if you have more than me. He tilted his head up, offended. I'm proud of every strand of hair on my head, black or grey. She burst into laughter, hiding her face in his shoulder. And besides, he said, lifting his face slightly, even if I had grey hair, I'd still look younger than you when you were 40. She gasped, excuse me. He grinned and leaned down, brushing his lips along her jaw, then down to her neck, pressing soft kisses that made her giggle and scream. It's so annoying, she whispered with a smile. But I'm your annoying old man, he said against her skin. She nodded, wrapping her arms tighter around him. Yes, she whispered, eyes closing. You are. Time skip. The grand mansion of Thane wasn't cold anymore. Where once marble walls echoed with silence, now they trembled with laughter, teasing and constant chatter, mostly from a certain girl who never seemed to stop talking, and Thane had never smiled this much in his life. Even Mr. Kim had backed off. No more scolding, no more snide remarks about ears. Thane would often joke, you have officially scared my father mine, to which she would grin proudly and say, as I should. They had grown inseparable, comfortable, familiar. Wine's endless yapping had somehow infected him. He started talking more, laughing louder, teasing without holding back. One day he laughed so hard at her impersonation of her professor that he said between fits of laughter, you have officially turned me into a yapper too. I used to be so mysterious. Wine crossed her arms, feigning offense. Are you saying I talk too much? He smirked. I'm saying your mouth needs the volume better. She threw a pillow at him with a shriek, saying, you were boring, not mysterious. Today Thane arrived early, the sun not even down yet, his coat slung over his shoulder, and a spring in his step. He was excited to see her, to maybe get tickets before dinner, but the moment he stepped inside, something felt off. There she was, stomping around like a thundercloud in his oversized shirt and little pajama shorts, cute as ever but clearly sulking. He leaned against the wall, smirking. Someone missed me so much they forgot how to smile. No response. Did you not eat? Is that why you're hungry? Should I be scared? Still nothing. He followed her as she stormed into the kitchen like she was about to declare war on the appliances. You're gonna crack the tiles with that storm, he teased. She whipped around and glared. He held up his hands, chuckling. Okay. You don't even respect me as an elder anymore. My poor knees hurt when I walk, and yet you're halfway to 40. Of course, your knees hurt. One snapped back, eyes blazing. Oh, funny coming from someone who can't reach the top shelf without crying. She gasped, and he swiftly stepped forward and without warning lifted her by the waist and held up to the cabinet. Here, go ahead, prove me wrong. He rolled his eyes. Thane, she squealed, laughing breathlessly. You rolled your eyes at me. He grinned, setting her down. I learned that from you. She groaned, marching out of the kitchen with dramatic flair, muttering under her breath. He followed her, grinning like a fool, watching her rant and fuss and pout. When they entered the bedroom, he froze mid-step. He stared at her head to toe, his oversized shirt loose around her collarbone, the sleeves rolled up adorably. He bit back a smile. You have officially stolen my shirt, he said, shamelessly eyeing her. She whipped around, then take it back. She unbuttoned the top button furiously. His brows lifted in amusement. She froze, eyes wide, cheeks suddenly red. You pervert, she gasped. He laughed, walking over slowly. You are the pervert. You were taking off your shirt in front of me. She groaned. What happened? Tell me, I'm all ears. Her lips trembled as she placed both palms flat on his chest, looking down. My mom called. She murmured voice low. She scolded me, saying, I'm wasting time studying, and you'll eventually get fed up. And I'm not as beautiful as your first wife. I'm not enough. Her voice broke. His expression immediately softened. He gently tilted her chin up with his finger. Wine, he whispered. That will never happen. Don't you trust me? Her eyes shimmered. You're the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. So beautiful it made me blind to every other girl in this world. Her cheeks flushed deep crimson. She looked away and whispered, it's not that. I just realized your first wife had you first. This room, your care, your love, your touch. It was hers first. He stepped even closer, wrapping his arms around her waist. In case you forgot, he said in a low, intense voice. That woman was not my first wife. She was just a hollow name, a hollow title on paper, nothing more. Wine stilled. She never lived in this room, never shared this bed. On our wedding day, she told me she loved someone else and was only marrying me because her family forced her. Wine's heart thudded, her breath slowed as she saw the storm of emotion swelling in his eyes. I never loved her, Tim continued softly. I never even touched her. You are the only one I have let this close. The only one I want, my only wife. Relief washed over her and she pressed her forehead against his chest, hugging him tightly. I was just overthinking, she whispered. He kissed the top of her head, very jealous. Of course not, she huffed. Really, he teased. Then give my shirt back. She glared. I'm changing right now. She turned to march toward the washroom, but he suddenly grabbed her by the wrist and gently pinned her against the wall, her hands held above her head. If you are going to seduce me, he whispered against her ear, voice low and husky, at least give me a warning. She shivered. Her whole body flushed red. Smirky, she whispered back. Why? Can't handle it, old man. His breath hissed and he leaned in, lips brushing her ear. I may be older, sweetheart, he murmured, but trust me, I'll ruin you sweetly. Her knees buckled and she tried to pull her hands free. He released her with a chuckle and caught her around the waist, lifting her up like she weighed nothing. Yeah, put me down. Only if you change in front of me, you're insufferable. She hid her face against his shoulders as he laughed, placing her gently on the bed. You're so tiny. He teased, brushing her hair away from her face, like a little bunny. I'm a fierce lion, she corrected with a pout. Sure, baby bunny, he whispered before smashing his lips onto hers. Her breath caught in her throat, his gaze was deep and demanding, but so gentle. She stood frozen at first, hands clutching his shirt, but when he pulled away slightly and whispered against her lips, sweetheart, you need to reciprocate. She groaned and pinched his chest. He laughed, but she leaned up and kissed him this time, furiously, passionately, desperately, their gaze deep and hands storming, hate rising. He held her tightly as if scared to let her go, and when they finally pulled apart, breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said softly, was shaking. I love everything about you, your chatter, your stubbornness, your tiny height, your big dreams, your soft heart. You made this cold house feel like home. You made me feel mine. You brought life back into me. Her eyes filled with tears and she covered his cheeks. I love you too, she whispered. I didn't know love could feel like this, like comfort and chaos and calm all at once. He kissed her again, slower, sweeter. Stay with me, he murmured against her lips. Always, she whispered back. Old man.